Hello, and welcome to the My Old Car video log, where I document how I maintain, repair, and occasionally make upgrades to my 1974 Chevrolet Monte Carlo that's been my daily driver since 1984. With dedication and tenacity, you too can make your first car your forever car and drive it forever. If you enjoy my videos, please like and subscribe. Furthermore, this video's description has some detailed information and useful links. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. Now, whenever you rebuild a Quadrajet, you want to be thorough. A couple of books that are absolutely essential reading, I should say some books, is Rochester Carburetors by, this is the first edition by Doug Rowe and Bill Fisher. Then later on they came up with a second edition by just Doug Rowe. Absolutely essential reading. It would behoove you to get this. And one other book is Rochester Quadrajet Carburetors by Cliff Ruggles. Both of these have lots of good information, secrets, all kinds of stuff to demystify these Quadrajet carburetors. Now, thorough rebuild includes installing primary throttle shaft bushings that go, in here, and then also unwarping or retruing the body. There are lots of videos showing how to install throttle shaft bushings, but only one uses a drill press, which I find preferable over a hand drill. Now, the kit I use here includes this, hold on a second here, this drill bit, this custom machine drill bit that has a stop. So you can gauge this accurately as to how deep, to drill out the body, the throttle body. And then it also has, oh come on, there we go. And it also has this this tool to tap these things in. It fits, fits right inside the bushing, and it taps it in all nice, clean, and tidy. Now, there are different things that end up causing these things to warp. The main stuff that warps is, well, a couple of things that cause them is when you tighten down, whoops, sorry about that. So when you tighten down too much on these front screws, it'll tend to warp this area down on both like the horn and the body. And the other part also is this center part, this part right here in there. That's where you're going to have your air cleaner threaded rod. And so if you really start cranking down on that air cleaner, you're going to literally pull this up. Now, I went ahead and already disassembled this to show you what I'm talking about. Now let's see if we can see this here. Let's see now if I can actually make this work. You know what? I'm going to rotate this camera around. Give me a moment. Okay, take two. Now let's take a look here. Here goes the part. I'm going to put the straight edge across. And you should be able to see all kinds of light. There it is. Do you see that? Yeah. You can see how the edges of the front are just, yeah. And then also across the center, there isn't quite as much distortion. And man, it's really hard to see on the camera. I'm trying to, but it's not wanting to cooperate. How about this way? Yeah, you can see a little bit more this way, and again, it's not easy. Let's see if I can have you see this. I know, but the body will be able to show you. All right, now this is the main body. Now let's put the straight edge over the front. You see that huge gap right there in the center, and if you look, that's where that right there is where that threaded rod goes. So let's go ahead and do this again. I'm going to set it like this, and there you go. You see all of that? Yeah, so let's see what we can do about taking care of that. Now, to re-true or unwarp this body and air horn, I'm going to be using the Barker unwarping tool, which as you can see, consists of these heavy plates and pieces that are welded together with indentations and depressions and stuff like that in order to appropriate bolts and stuff. Now, the first thing we need to do, and it has nicely illustrated instructions. So the first thing that needs to do is this needs to be the main body needs to be put into the drill press, and then these holes just expanded, I mean just a little tiny bit. It doesn't hurt the carburetor in the least. So, and you use this bit, and so that you can utilize these bolts right here to bolt them down into the main body, or rather into the jig, the straightening jig. So let's head over to the drill press. There it goes. All right, so this hole is a 3/8 hole, and we're expanding that by up to 25/64, which is literally a 64th of an inch larger in diameter. So it's not very much. Nevertheless, I like to align the holes with the axis of the drill press. So now bear in mind, since this body is warped, this hole is not aligned the same as that hole. They're both kind of tweaked. So you have to align these independently. And I put this here to help keep any kind of chips from flying into the carburetor. And put another rag on here. So there we go. And as I said, this is all aligned, and at the risk of being redundant, this is a 25/64 bit. So let's go ahead, get this turned on and started and drilled out. And there we are. Let's see, making sure. Here we go. All right, time to do the other hole. All right, the next step in the process is to bolt the body and the air horn onto their respective jigs. And then and only finger tighten the bolts. Now the rest of this process is totally easy but very time consuming. Patience equals success. Do not, and I emphasize not, rush this process. So according to the directions, it's pretty clear as to what bolts go where, and even for like the top part, they give you some notes and stuff like that, things to and not to do, and they even show you like, yeah, this is how much things can warp, like I showed you already. Anyway, so let's get started. I think I'll put this on here first, but I'll go ahead and bolt the air horn onto the air horn jig. Now you have to be really careful with these air tubes. They go into specific holes depending on the year and the model. So carefully line these up. There we go. And again, they have different bolts and adapters for the different years. This particular one, it has a couple of cutouts for these two top nib thingies. I don't know what the tech term is, it's irrelevant. So put this in, and then these go here, and this goes in where the air cleaner threaded rod goes. So just like I said, you hand and tighten these. Now because we've shown how warped this is, it's not always straightforward to put these bolts in. What I found works is to kind of lift up the body as you thread these and, you know, hand tighten them down. And again, you know, you have to be patient with this. I have done this a number of times, and I found that being slow, patient, taking, you know, a couple of days, heck, even 3 days, if you're okay with that, is what gets the job done. There. As I said, hand tighten these things. Now these, as I said, oh, here you can actually see, once again, how much of the body is warped. Look at that. I mean, can you see this as well as I can, just how much the back of this has been raised compared to the rest of this. So anyway, let's go ahead and go on to the next stage in the process. And as I said, this is the next stage, is the most time-consuming part. What you do is you're going to be putting this into your oven, as in like your oven at home. You're going to set it for about 250 degrees. You're going to put these things in the oven as they are, nice and cold. Put it in the oven, turn it to 250 degrees, and then give it about an hour for it to fully warm up. Once it's warmed up, you get a regular wrench and you just snug all of these bolts. Just snug them. Do not torque them yet. Put it in for another hour at 250. Then snug them up. Do not torque them yet. Put it in for another hour and keep snugging up. And you repeat this process until you're getting a lot of resistance, especially on these nuts here. And these back here, since this part of the body needs to you know, come back down, since, given that we've already finger tightened these down onto the jig. So once you're feeling resistance on your wrench, and when I say you're using the wrench, you know, you just go up on the top. You don't wrench it down when you snug it. So once you start feeling resistance, that's when you break out with a torque wrench. Then you go and torque these down to maybe 15 or so pounds. Well, you know, and then throw it in for another hour. After that, if it's still at 20, let's say 15 or 20 pounds, you ultimately want to work your way up to 35 pounds. And you see that right there. Oh shoot, I can't even find it right now. But yeah, you're going to be working your way up to 35 pounds on these bolts. Then you put it in for an hour, then you shut the oven off and let it sit overnight and let it cool. Once you've done that, it'll be bitchin'. So, let's put these in the oven. Alright, it's time to get started on heating these items up. Make sure you have your wrenches handy. I use this one to hang on, you know, to the jig as I tighten things down, nice and big. And then these are for, you know, the different size bolts. I think this is 9/16. Yep. And then these down here are 1/2 inch, and then these in here are 7/16. So let's get started. And as I said, turn this up to 250. Then come back in an hour.
1 hour later.
All right, let's do the first round of tightening up these bolts. By the way, hopefully, if you're not single, hopefully you have a very understanding partner for them to allow you to use their stove. Alrighty. Okay.
The next day.
Alright, did all that work yesterday. Now today we're going to be unbolting the main body and air horn from the jigs. Already loosened these. Well, broke them loose. So and now we compare this against a straight edge. Look at that. There we go. You may recall the biggest offender was right in this area here, right? Let's see. Well, certainly unwarped this. Looks good. Alright, here we go. Let's see. Biggest offender was right there, right? Looks to have done pretty good. Alright, here we go. There we are. Now I should note that in the years of doing this, I mean, you know, if it wasn't all flattened, then you would do a, you know, you can repeat this process, and it would require, of course, a little more patience. But all things considered, this worked out pretty well. And not to mention, you know, yeah, sure, you could repeat this process again and again. But anyway, looks like we're ready to reassemble. I like how this turns out. That and so, yeah, in all of the years I've been using this tool, I've never had to actually redo the process. But as I said, you know, patience and more patience, and we'll get you good results. Now, there's one more thing that I do, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Now, the earliest Quadrajets had 3 screws that hold the base, or what am I trying to say? The throttle body, the throttle base, onto the main body of the carburetor. Well, sometime, I don't know, maybe like the real early 70s, they stopped doing that. Now, here we go. We've got one here where, doesn't have that third hole. I find that third hole is beneficial to prevent the, to keep the body down. Here we go. Move this out the way. There. So I find that third hole to help keep, since it bolts to the center of the main body, helps to keep the entire, the center part of the body down when you have the air cleaner screw in the center, or the threaded rod. And so with that keeping the body held down, it helps, and I emphasize only helps, to prevent warpage of the body, of the center part of the body, and consequently the air horn from from warping upward. So in a lot of the Quadrajet bodies during the early 70s, they had a hole right here, and it was threaded. I thought this was odd, seeing how the throttle plate didn't have a hole for a screw, but the body did. This particular Quadrajet is a service replacement, which was, I think, I don't know, let me look at the date code here. I don't know, looks like it may have been made probably in 78, but for a 1975 car. And so they didn't they didn't drill that hole out. Now, I've marked this for that screw hole, for one of these 2 screw, so it matches these 2 screw holes. So I've marked it, and I've put a stop on the drill press so that it'll only go down. Here we go. Actually, let me zoom this in. Come on. This is weird. I can do this. I very rarely do it, but I have. There we go. So I've already measured this, and it stops at a preset height. So, and I've marked it to where that hole would normally be. I use the base gasket in order to do that. So I'm going to drill this out and then thread it using a number 21 drill bit. I'm going to drill this out. Now, to make sure that the tap goes in straight and straight and square, I'm going to use the drill press to get started with this tap. And then once it's started and starts making threads, I'm going to release the tap from the drill press. There it is. There. And then go on, put a T-handle on it, and do the rest. Fortunately, since this is a zinc, rather the carburetor body is like a zinc alloy, this is really soft and easy to do. Now it's time to drill out the throttle base. It's going to, let's see here, probably see it better this way. Alright, and as with the body, I've already marked out where the center is. And now this is a through hole. Let me make sure that drill press is set up to go all the way through. Yep, it is. This is going to be a through hole. And let's get started here, shall we? Make sure the screw fits, and it does. Now on the other side, these holes are chamfered. I should say they're recessed. So I got this special recessed bit, fits right into there. And all I need to do is set how deep it is on these other holes into the drill press. There you can see, nice and recessed like the original, and that way, like the original holes, the screw is also recessed. So let's see about test fitting all of this together. There we go. All right, it test fit just fine. There. Now we have a base, or throttle base, that has the third hole. So anyway, that's my one additional little, I don't know what you would want to call it, trick, hack, modification, improvement, whatever. But there you have it.
If you enjoyed the video and found it useful, please be sure to click the like button. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think it's time for a drive.